Our company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And I am sitting up in Arad in Romania with a bunch of crazy storytellers, which I'm going to shout, hello, can we all shout?
Hello.
Whoa!
Hello. Hello.
Welcome to Venice Festival. À bientôt au mois de février 2023.
Okay, some say something in Italian, Carmen.
And French, c'est ça in French, Monique, c'est ça in French. À bientôt au mois de février 2023.
Well, whatever she said, we all agree, don't we?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Hello from
That's a
England.
show right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand over to Mike Rust, having have a great time. I'm going to get back to I'm in the middle of a celebratory dinner. It's at the end of the festival. So
Okay,
have a
John.
great evening, everyone, or afternoon if you're in America.
Okay, John.
See you,
thanks
Mike.
very
Over
much.
to you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Welcome to the storytelling round on a Sunday evening. And then my name's Mike Rust, if those of you who don't know who I am, which is an awful lot of people. And all we do is it's a story round. So everybody just tells a story and I sit and nick them and then I go and tell them to somebody else. It's absolutely wonderful fun. And from time to time I get paid for telling lies in pubs. It's absolutely perfect. Can't think of anything better in life. Okay, so I can see some absolutely wonderful faces that come each year. So I'm going to start off with a little one to give everybody a chance. And then we'll go to Colin, right? Then Diane, Baba, and Keith. How about that? So we're going Colin, Diane, Baba, Keith. And that will get us started off as a batting order. Go on, who's speaking? You're breaking
Mike,
up.
don't forget Zuhair in Marrakesh would like.
No, I can see Zuhair. Yes, Zuhair, if you go number 5. Absolutely. Is that okay with you, Zuhair? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Right, I'll go 5 and we'll take it from there. That's okay. Right. I can hear, right, so if everybody mutes themselves, apart from the speaker, we should be okay. Mike, it says you're muted, but I think I can hear you for some reason. Right. So I'm not sure if I've told this one before. I've got a whistle on me. Here we go. Because a long time ago, an awful long time ago in my life, because I'm 67, so we're talking about when I was about 25 years old, I was told this story about the River Wye that goes into Herefordshire. Now, if you follow the River Wye upstream from the bridge in Herefordshire, you come to a place called Whitecross. Now, Whitecross now is a big Christian cross on a roundabout in the middle of a council estate. But what it was in the olden days was a big sign to indicate that if you were coming in from Wales, you were coming into a good Christian city. And if you were leaving Hereford to go into Wales up in the Golden Valley, you were leaving a good Christian city to go into the pagan lands. And what they meant by the pagan lands, they meant the Golden Valley that goes up to Hay on Wye and into Wales itself. And they tell this story up there because there was a family up there, up on Hergest Ridge. And up on Hergest Ridge, in this family, they were called the Vaughans. Now there was the good Vaughan, there was the saintly Vaughan. There was the nurse Vaughan and the doctor Vaughan and the vicar Vaughan, and there was also a Vaughan who was a lawyer that everybody liked, which is strange for lawyers. But they managed to have a Black Vaughan. Now, Black Vaughan, you can understand how he got his name. He was a really nasty piece of work, he was. And when he could be nasty, he did it for fun. And everybody got together one day and they said, look, you can't carry, you are the Lord, you're going to have to put a stop to this. And he ignored them still. So one day he woke up dead. And he woke up dead with an arrow straight through his throat because the people didn't like him up against the tree. But because he was dead, he absolutely saw no reason at all why he should stop doing his favorite things. So sometimes he'd come back as a black dog, and sometimes as a black horse, and sometimes as a black bear, and sometimes as a black wolf. And he'd raid the people, the good, honest people that were going from one market to another and back again. And he'd scare them and he'd chase them around and he'd eat their flocks of sheep and all sorts of things. And in the end, it wasn't any good at all because all the Welsh, they were staying on the Welsh side of the border, not coming over to England. And all the English people, they couldn't get over to Wales and they couldn't get into Knighton. So they weren't going, they'd have to go to strange places like Kington, around Hay-on-Wye and places like that. So the people at Knighton, they went together and they went to the vicar and he was an abbot. And he said, you're going to have to do something about this. You are going to have to make sure that Black Vaughan stops all this stuff. Well, the only thing he could think to do was to go into the church one morning and he got a little snuff box. You know what a snuff box is? The snuff is the stuff you stick up your nose and you snort. And he put it on the middle of the floor and he got 12 of his friends. So there was 12 of them, like the 12 apostles, sitting round in a circle. And on two knees, with their hands up like this, they started praying. Well, they prayed for 55 minutes on, 5 minutes off for 12 hours. Now, this wasn't the type of praying that you and I do in the churches nowadays. This is proper old medieval praying. And they got on their knees and they prayed and they prayed and they prayed for the first 12 hours. And they found Black Vaughan up in the hills and they started bringing him in. Then they prayed for another 12 hours and they got him a bit further. Then they switched the teams around and they even tell me, because they were short of proper religious people up in those parts all those years ago, they included some nuns. And some women came in and sat down and they joined in the prayer. And there was one particular abbess that her praise was so strong that she was bringing Black Vaughan closer and closer. And they say that it was her on the end of the second day, that with her really powerful prayer, that brought Black Vaughan into the church. So they're on their knees and there was a snuff box. And the abbot went over and he opened the snuff box. And then they started praying for the last 24 hours and they prayed and they prayed and they prayed. And everybody taking a place, everybody there. And in the end, Black Vaughan, he was being sucked and closer and closer and closer to that snuff box till he was hovering above it. And at the very end of the third day, the abbotess went down and she knelt down and she put her hands in front of her like this. And she said the one prayer that we all know, the one prayer that our Lord, he taught us. He said the old Lord's Prayer. And as she said it, Black Vaughan came into the snuff box and was held there, and she walked over and she snapped it shut with her two fingers and stood up and went, what do we do now? And she looked at it and the abbot came over and they all looked at it and they all looked at the abbotess and said, whatever you do, don't let go of that. Just keep him there. Just hold it there. And that's what she did. And they gave her a cup of tea because we're in England. And they sat down and they decided what to do because they hadn't thought that far. So what they did was they went to a pond and they sat her there and they drained the pond. And they put the little snuff box at the bottom of the pond and they put a stone over the top. And the stone over the top of it, they carved these words. This will be here for 1,000 years. At the end of 1,000 years, the stone will break and Black Vaughan will come back. And they put it down and they started letting the water into it. Now, the thing is we don't quite know the date of the story. Now, when I first told it, it was 1015 was the year they gave me. But the stone hasn't broken, so it can't be 1015 because that would have been about 7 or 8 years ago. So every Boxing Day they go back there and they're looking at it and they're thinking, well, maybe it'll be this year or maybe it'll be next year. But all I know is this, about 15 years ago, they needed to drain that pond And some of the good old boys that I know, one of them was my cousin, took a JCB over there, and they put the bucket of the JCB, and as it just touched the water to break the little dam to drain it, the water started bubbling. It was as if the water was boiling itself. And they all looked at each other, and they took the JCB back home, and they went to the pub, and they phoned me. And they said, Mike, what was the date of that story you used to tell about Hurgis Pool? And I went, well, I thought it was around 10:15, but it obviously isn't, so it's probably next week. And they all started laughing. And that's just a little story from way back up in the hills of Herefordshire. Right, so I've got a batting order. So I'm going to go Colin first. Then we're going to go Diane, and then Baba, then Keith, then Zohar. And then we're going to take it from there. And then but as I always say, at every opportunity, Rona, I can see you. Despina, I can see you. And I've got some more. I'm going to stay here so everybody gets an opportunity to tell a story if they so want to do. And if they don't want to do, then it doesn't really matter. You're very welcome just to come and listen. I can see Janet here as well. So I'm going to go to Larne in Northern Ireland, over to Colin there, who is absolutely, I hear you had a wonderful time at Cape Clear, I think you were at.
Cape Clear, fantastic festival, a great time, but I've been to Cork, and I've been to where was it? Sligo and Donegal since that. I was
wow!
There in Donegal the weekend there, so great time. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm going to hand over to you, and thank you very much for being here, mate. It's really nice to see you.
Thanks, Mike. That was a fantastic story. That's my kind of story. I like that a lot. Great stuff. I'm going to go back slightly further than 1,000 years. But before I do that, because there's people here that might not just know what the Fianna is, the Fianna were a famed band of warrior poets who, if they were lucky enough to be chosen to join the Fianna, they had to prove themselves in battle. They had to prove themselves at poetry. They had to learn these extraordinary long bardic poems and be able to recite them word for word, which would take several hours just for one poem. They had to be able to run through the forest at full pace and not so much as ruffle a leaf or crack a twig. And at full gallop, they had to go under a stick placed at just a couple of foot above the ground and leap over another one that was overhead height. And they had to hunt. They had to be able to hunt by themselves with a spear, wild boar and red stag. And there were many other things that they had to be competent in before they were accepted into this elite band of warriors. And once they joined the Fianna, they were in it for life, and their responsibility was to protect Erin from all her many enemies. And the most famed leader of the Fianna was a man called Finn McCool. And I want to take you back 1,700 years to the Battle of Gowra. And after that battle, which was concocted battle by the High King of Ireland, who was jealous of Finn McCool's power and the loyalty of his men in the Fianna, but that's a story for another day. After that battle, only a handful of the Fianna survived. Finn McCool and his son, Oisin, were among them. And after the battle, they flew to the beautiful kingdom of Kerry, down in the southwest of Ireland, and they hunted wild boar along the shores of Loch Lean, and they went up onto the slopes of Cairntoul, the highest mountain on Erin, and they hunted red stags there. And greatly restored by the thrill of the chase and the fresh red meat and the beautiful, splendid scenery all around them, they decided to move out towards the wild Kerry coastline. And it was there that a woman mounted on a pure white steed galloped up out of the western ocean towards them. Her long yellow hair flowed out behind her on the breeze, and her eyes danced like two sapphire-coloured stars. And when she came towards them, they could see that she was the most beautiful woman any of them had ever seen. She said, "My name is Niamh of the golden hair. My father is King of Tir na nOg, the land of the forever young," which is somewhere out in the far western ocean. She said, "I have come because I have heard of you, Oisin. I have dreamed of you. I have heard of your great poems and your courage in battle and your beauty." "Me?" said Oisin. "Until this very moment, I am sorry to say, I have never laid eyes on you in my life before." "'Tis true," she said, "but I have dreamed many dreams about you. I have dreamed that we might be joined as man and wife, and that you would come away with me to Tir na nOg." Well, Oisin was instantly taken by Niamh. So beautiful was she. And he looked around at the men of the Fianna, and they looked back at Niamh. "Come with me," she said, and she put her hand out. Well, Oisin said, "I am truly honoured, and right here and now I pledge my life and love to you." And then he bid farewell to each and every one of his comrades. And when he came to his father, he embraced him, and he could see tears streaming down the old warrior's cheeks. But Finn boldly raised his hand, and he called a blessing to his son. "Go, and may you love faithfully and live well, my son." And Oisin mounted that stallion behind Niamh. He put his arms around her waist. A horse reared, and they galloped off into the western ocean, and the waves parted and swallowed them up. And many days and many nights they travelled, and they had many strange adventures. Too strange and too long to tell just now. But eventually they came to the land of Tir na nOg. Did I not tell you, my love? Is this not the most beautiful place you have ever seen? And indeed, it was the most beautiful place Oisin had ever seen. All the trees were hung with fruit, and everyone was in the first flush of youth. They were married, and they lived together as man and wife, and they might have been happy for all eternity. But after 3 years, Oisin began to miss his father and the Fianna, his comrades, his friends. "I want to return to Erin one last time," he said. "Please, my love, you cannot. Erin has greatly changed since the days of the Fianna. A new religion will have swept everything that you knew aside. Your father and all your friends in the Fianna will be gone." "Fear not, Niamh," he said. "Your horse knows the way. He will bring me back safely to you, I swear." And eventually Niamh relented. "Very well," she said, "but promise me one thing. Promise me that your foot will never touch so much as touch the soil of Erin, for if it does, you can never return to the land of Tir na nOg." 3 times she made him promise, and 3 times he laughed off her concerns. "I will come back. I will return to you. I promise," he said. "I fear you will not." And then she kissed him, and they lay together as they had done, on the night of their marriage. Well, Oisin set off the next morning on that horse, and it galloped as fast and as straight as a well-thrown spear. Many days and nights they travelled through the Western Ocean until they came to the shores of that beautiful kingdom of Kerry in the southwest of Ireland. And there he came ashore, and he searched all through Munster and Leinster and Meath and Connaught and eventually Ulster. But not a trace of his father or the Fianna could he find, except that the people told stories about Finn McCool and the Fianna. They told Oisin that he had died 300 years before. And it was then that Oisin realised that 1 year in Tír na nÓg was a century in Erin. And eventually he sat on that horse on the cliffs at the edge of Antrim, looking out towards Alba across the Sea of Moyle, where the Fianna had gone to hunt wild boar many times. And then he had to accept that his father and all his comrades were dead and gone. And with his stone, his heart weighing like a stone, he turned that horse and he began to slowly ride back to the kingdom of Kerry and eventually to Tír na nÓg. But he hadn't gone far when he came across a crowd of people. And when they saw him, they were awed by his great stature and his long golden hair and his fine looks. "Help us, please," they said. "Please help us to move this stone." And Oisin rode among them. He could see that they were underfed and feeble. And he reached down and with one hand he made to move that stone. But the girth strap on his saddle broke. And to save himself, Oisin leapt from the horse and planted his 2 feet on the ground. It was the first time his feet had been on the solid ground of Erin for such a long time. And it felt good. But then he remembered the words of his beloved Niamh. "Let not so much as your foot touch the soil of Erin, for if you do, you can never return to Tír na nÓg." And the moment that thought passed through his mind, Oisin fell to his knees. The flesh fell from his bones. His back stooped and bent. His skin shriveled up like an autumn leaf. His hair turned white. His teeth fell out. And before the eyes of those astonished people, he became like a blind old man, unable to stand. And Oisin died. But not before he told his story to a man that the people revered as the leader of the father, in fact, of their new religion. A man called Patrick. And the people took Oisin's body and they buried him where he fell on that lonely hillside in the glens of Antrim. And a few standing stones are all that remain to mark his grave. But to this day, people still come to remember and lament the passing of the greatest warrior poet of them all, Oisin, the last of the Fenians. Thank you.
Oh, what a lovely story, Colin. Thank you ever so much. And like you, and I love stories like that. Absolutely. It is almost as good as some of the English ones that we tell. Okay. But I love the stories that go back, well back to times like that. It's lovely. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to read out the batting order for those of you who don't go. Now, I've got 2 Zohairs, I think, in front of me. All right. So I'm not quite sure how this is working, but there's room for both of you. So we're going to go to Diane next from the Highlands. Baba is your 3. Keith, you're 4. Zohar, 1. And that was the one the World Storytelling Calf motif behind you, Zohair. You're 5. Despina, you're 6. Janet, you're 7. And Baden, if you're still about, you'll be 8. and then I'll sort anybody else in. Rona, I've got you down as 9 because you came in late. Okay. Right, so we're going to go to the Highlands of Scotland, where all the women are beautiful, inside and out, because Stanley Robinson always started his stories by telling me that. Okay.
Right, the story I've got for you is from the Highlands and the Islands today, actually. And there was a chief a very long time ago. He was the chief of Kintail. And anyone that's been to Skye will know there are the 5 sisters of Kintail, and they are mountains. And it's steeped in folklore. And this chief loved all the folklore. He felt it made him, you know, sort of bond with his native area all the more. And he felt it also made him wiser. So unsurprisingly, he had heard of this legend that a son or a daughter could have supernatural powers if they drank from the skull of a raven once they were newly weaned, when they were about 2 years old, something like that. And he didn't know if there was any truth in this, but he decided that he would find out. So when his young son, Seamus, was very young, he was taken out into the countryside, and his father gave him a raven's skull. Not that easy to come across in the first place. And it was filled with milk, as much as he could get in it, and the son drank from it. Now, I'm not quite sure what the chief was expecting. Maybe he was expecting something to happen straight away. But nothing happened for a long time. And this child, Seamus, was just the same as any other child. Sometimes they were good, sometimes they were badly behaved. But then one day, the chief went out for a walk. And he'd been roaming for quite a bit when he came to this little passageway, and it was shrouded with bushes, so he couldn't see over the top. And he heard this voice. And he didn't understand the language, but he did recognize the voice. This was the voice of his son. And so he went round the side of the bushes and confronted his son, and all the birds just flew away, because here was Seamus talking in bird language to these little birds. He understood, and his father was quite amazed, but very pleased about this. This legend had come true for him. And well, the young boy grew up. And as he grew up, he learned to ride, and he learned to hunt. And when he went hunting, he had a falcon on his wrist, and he would commune with this falcon. And there was a great understanding there. Similarly, when he went down to the shore, all the seabirds, they knew Seamus. He would learn great things from them about travelers on the ocean, about what was going on in different lands round about. And he would also learn from the birds in the countryside, just next to where he stayed. And everyone agreed that this son, Seamus, would be a wonderful heir to his father's being a chieftain like his father. They thought he was a very wise and knowledgeable young man, and very able as well. Well, time went on. And on this particular night, there was a great banquet in the hall, and everything had been so well prepared, and everything had been decorated. And there was a roaring fire on, because it was getting to that time of year. And all the food was brought out. And then later on, there was dancing and fiddle playing, and it was wonderful. And the chief himself sat, as you would expect, at the top table. Well, his son brought over some wine for him and poured it into his goblet. And then the chief was a bit distracted, because as he looked up, he could see a blackened part on the ceiling. And there were starlings there, and they were beginning to make quite a bit of a racket, quite a bit of noise. And he said to his son, unsurprisingly, as he knew about birds, "What are they saying?" And Seamus hesitated, because he didn't really want to tell his father what they were saying. And what he did say was that, well, I fear you will be angry if I tell you. What was that going to do? Just make his father even more curious. And that's exactly what happened. And so he told his father that they were talking about a day when the roles would be reversed, when the king would be waiting on Seamus. And immediately his father went into a huge temper, and he was sure that his son Seamus was going to betray him and that he wanted to get to be a chieftain quicker than he should. But you know, that wasn't true. And Seamus tried always to explain to his father that he was just repeating what the birds had said, and that he didn't have any designs on leading in that part of the world at the moment. And he was very faithful to his father, and he was so upset because why would his father not believe him when his whole life had been dedicated to being a good son? Well, his father wouldn't listen, and he told him, "You are banished. You must go." And all he could do was go with the clothes on his back. But where was he going to do? He only knew about the islands and the Highlands in Scotland. And he was ill prepared and he had no money. But he went down by the shoreline, not too far away, and he managed to get passage on a ship. Well, when he went on the ship, of course, it was hard work, but he loved being outdoors and he loved seeing all the countryside round about him and the thrill of being on the boat, even though the hours were long and the pay was small. But when they got to France, well, he decided he would get off the boat and he would go on foot. And he enjoyed that. He'd always enjoyed walking, and he walked for a long, long way, until in the distance he could see some golden tops of turrets behind trees. And he thought to himself, this must be the King of France. So he went on, more out of curiosity than anything. But as he got nearer, there were lots of sounds competing for his ears. There was chopping, and there were this clattering, clamoring sound of all these birds chattering at once and never giving up. It was incessant, it was mad. But what could you do? So he listened to the servant. Well, the servant came to one side. It wasn't really listening. The servant spoke slowly. He enunciated clearly, and he gave actions so that Seamus could understand, because the clamour was so great that basically what had happened, well, they didn't know what had happened. All this noise from the birds, and they couldn't do anything to stop it. And it was disrupting their whole way of living. And all the time, Seamus is thinking, perhaps I can do something about this. So we asked the servant to be taken to the king, and he was taken down a long passageway with glass panels, and all the birds were coming over, and the noise there was really quite a lot. But as he got closer to the king's quarters, it got less so and less so. But even then, when he went into the king's room, there was one little sparrow that had got there, and it was making the most incredible noise for something so little. Well, slowly he told the king that he could commune with birds. And the king was very interested. And he was thinking to himself, well, this will be wonderful if you can do it. But kings, well, at that time, they were used to all kinds of tricksters coming up saying they could do things. And sometimes they just didn't do it, or they tricked in some other way. But here he was. Well, he would give Seamus a try. And Seamus spoke to the bird in the room and discovered that the reason all the birds were making this huge racket was because the poplars were being cut down, and those trees were their homes, and they were very worried and upset. And so what Seamus did after that, when he discovered all that, he said, if you get your men to stop chopping the trees Then the birds say, they will be quiet. This is one of them. He promises me. So the King of France thought to himself, what did he have to lose? And that's what happened. He went out and he told his men to stop chopping. And it gradually stopped. It went from a lot of chopping, gradually down till the last chop. And then it was silent. There wasn't even the sound of the wind. It was amazing. And people could think. And no one believed at that time just how much the silence would have meant to them, because this was something they hadn't had for such a long time. Well, the king waited, and the king waited, but not too long. He was very grateful to Seamus for what he had done, and he rewarded him very well. He gave him a galley with a gold prow and a quantity of gold, and he thanked him. And of course, they might even keep in touch. But off he went. There were so many parts of the world he hadn't been to. And for 10 years, he roamed round and he went to all kinds of different countries with different peoples, with different cultures, different food. And he grew in wisdom and he grew in knowledge. But deep down in his heart, he longed for Kintail. He longed for the island of Skye, and he wanted to go back. And he decided, well, that he would. And so he stocked up and his galley set out, and eventually they came to Totaig on the one side and the rocky islet on the other. And that was the entrance to his homeland, to all that he knew from the past, the plan that had shaped him. And when he went in and came to the shore, no one knew who he was. No, he changed quite a lot. He was quite tanned with all the being in so many countries that had the sun, had a lot of sunshine. And his hair was different. It was blonde because of all the hot weather. And it was longer, and he also had a beard. No one recognized him at all. So he came ashore, and word went up to the chief, his father, that there was someone new here, and he was very rich and powerful. And of course, he was invited to dinner in that same hall. And he sat down at the table, and everyone was fussing over him and listening to all his tales of all these wonderful countries that he'd been to and all that he had done. And then he told them about the King of France. But then when he did tell them that, they began to wonder. And he told his father who he really was. And his father was overcome with emotion because he knew once he had banished his son that he had done the wrong thing. But he'd been in such a temper and he'd been so worried about his own rule at that time. But what could you do? It wasn't the days of emails or, well, just maybe a pigeon carrier or something like that. But he didn't even know where his son would have been. So now here he had, and he embraced his son, and they all agreed, all the company, that this was a tremendous heir to take over. But the father wasn't quite ready to hang up his hat at that point. But then they say that good news travels fast, bad news travels faster. But good news reached the King of Scotland, all about this Seamus, all about what he'd done, about how wise he was. And the King of Scotland at that time was very troubled with Norse invaders. And he wanted to keep them at bay. And so what they did was they built this castle, the Eilean Donan Castle, looking out, ready as a bastion against these Norse invaders. And who would be in charge of it but Seamus? And the castle is still there today. And the story lives on.
Oh, lovely. Absolutely lovely. Oh, Colin, we're getting some really good, cool stories, Celtic stories and all sorts so far. That's been great. That's 3 brilliant stories. I'm really enjoying tonight. This is great. So I feel that we're going to something completely different because we're going to go to Baba and from Baba to Keith. Baden, I can see you. If you can, are you going to tell a story? Would you put your hand up, please? Brilliant. Okay, Baba, we're over to you, mate. Here we go.
Okay. I'm going to tell a real quickie and then I'm going to tell my story. This is a quickie. And it was motivated by what's going on in the United States at the moment, kind of, sort of. And it's also a story still in development. So the names keep changing, but today the story is about 2 best friends forever, Michael Bush and Michael Tree. Now, Mike and Mike, oh, by the way, it's just coincidence, Mike and Mike. But their names, okay. But Mike and Mike have been best friends since they were just wee lads. I mean, they did a lot of things together. They served in the service together. They started a couple of businesses together. I mean, they were bestest of friends. In fact, Mike Tree had a son. Mike Bush was single and had no such attachments, but he was godfather to Mike Tree's son. And Mike said, if anything should ever happen to me, please look after my son. And Mike Bush said, of course, it goes without saying. Now, it should be mentioned that Mike Tree, his son had some issues. He wasn't a bad lad, but he had some issues. And unfortunately, Mike Tree passed away. Mike Bush stepped up to the task. But alas, he had no children. He was a good godfather, but the other Mike's son was just too much for him to handle. The boy had issues. He needed more care than Mike Bush could offer. So reluctantly, he had the boy institutionalized. And the moment he signed the papers and the boys went, it was a good facility, but the moment he handed the boy over to the facility, the FBI showed up and arrested him. And they charged him for committing Tree's son. I know. My next story will make up for that.
It's going to have to. Yeah.
And as you know, this story, when it was first told, was told a long time ago. This story, you know, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but first it takes a village to be a village. Now, this story is about a buzzard. In some places they call it a vulture, but I'm gonna call it a buzzard. And at one time, the buzzard was a very beautiful animal. It had very, very colorful feathers, and it flew with a grace. And it had one problem. It was very lazy. You see, it didn't like to hunt. If it hunted the juicy animals, they put up a fight. And if they hunted the elderly animals, they were tough and they were tough and didn't have much flavor. So the buzzard decided he was only going to eat the young animals. The younger, the better, because they could not put up a fuss. So the first animal he got was a baby rabbit. He landed very gracefully and he said, hello, young rabbit. I see you hopping around. Have you ever played in the clouds? And the young rabbit said, no, bunnies hop, but we can't hop that high. I've never been to the clouds. Well, get on me back and I'll take you to the clouds. And the little bunny hopped on the buzzard's back, and the buzzard flew ever so gracefully, and he flew higher and higher and higher and higher, and the little bunny started playing with the clouds, going, wee, this is fun, this is fun. And the buzzard said, yes, but now I must take you back. I must take you back. And the buzzard went into what some people call a nosedive. And it started going faster and faster and faster as his wings tucked under, faster and faster and faster. And it came close to a tree where it stopped. Air brakes. But the little bunny shot off the buzzard's back, hit the tree. You know what happened? The buzzard had his meal. The people in the village were not happy about this, and all the mamas called their children and said, "Don't you go anywhere with that buzzard. You stay away with that buzzard. I don't care what he says. Stay away from that buzzard." And all the fathers went, "You heard your mother. You heard your mother. You heard your mother." So one day, there was a little squirrel, and he was hopping from tree to tree. Actually, he was a flying squirrel. He was gliding from tree to tree, and the buzzard landed on a branch of a tree that the little squirrel had just finished gliding to. He said, "You know, you do that so well. Have you ever thought about going up and playing with the clouds?" And the little squirrel said, "No, but my mommy told me, my mommy told me not to go with you anywhere, so no." "Well, get on my back and I'll take you to your mama. And then when she says yes, we can go to the clouds." So the little squirrel got on the buzzard's back, and the buzzard flew. But instead of going to his mama, he flew straight up in the clouds. And at first the little squirrel was afraid, but then as he tried to grab the clouds, he was going, "Yay, wee, wee." And the buzzard said, "Yeah, but now I got to take you back," and went into a nosedive. And he went faster and faster and faster with his wings tucked under, got closer and closer to a tree, and then he stopped. And the little squirrel, even though it could glide, it couldn't fly, and it went right into that tree, and the buzzard had his meal. By now, the village was very upset. I mean, how dare, no. And they really told their children, and the fathers got up and said, "Under no circumstances do you go anywhere with that buzzard. Stay away, stay away, stay away." And the mother said, "You heard your father. You heard your father." And so for a while, the buzzard couldn't trick any of the little animals on getting on him back. But one day he saw a monkey a little away on the outskirts of the village. And he landed so gracefully by the monkey, and he said, "Hello, little monkey. I see you hopping from tree to tree and having a tell of a time. Have you ever played with the clouds?" "No." "Well, get on my back and I'll take you." "Oh, no. My mommy told me that I wasn't to go anywhere with you, and my father told me I wasn't supposed to go anywhere with you, so I'm not going anywhere with you." "Well, get on my back and I'll take you to your mom, and if she says it's okay, then we go play with the clouds." Okay. So the monkey got on the buzzard's back, and the buzzard first flew around the village. And the people looked up and saw the monkey on the buzzard's back, and they started hollering and screaming, but they were too far up for their words to be heard. And the monkey said, "Oh, that's my mommy. What's she saying?" "Oh, she's saying go higher, go higher." "Well, then go higher, go higher." And so the buzzard began to fly higher and higher. And now the fathers were screaming, and their thunderous voices just couldn't carry quite that high into the sky. And the little monkey said, "Oh, that's my daddy and my uncles. What are they saying?" "They're saying go higher, go higher." "Well, then go higher, go higher." And they went way up in the cloud. The monkey started trying to grab the clouds and everything, going, "Wee, oh yeah, this is fun, oh yeah, this is fun. But you know what? My mommy and daddy might be worried. You better take me back home." And the buzzard said, "Oh, I'll take you there." And the buzzard went into a dive, going faster and faster with his wings tucked under, faster and faster and faster. And then he got to the tree and he stopped. But the little monkey, in his efforts not to lose his balance, had wrapped his tail around the buzzard's neck. And when the buzzard stopped, the little monkey shot forward a little bit, but his tail acted kind of like a seatbelt, and he shot back. And he tightened his grip on the buzzard's neck. And he tightened and tightened and tightened it. And the buzzard tried to fly, but it couldn't breathe, and it fell to the ground. And it was let go. You're choking me. "Oh, I know. You're choking me. I know. Let me go. I won't bother you. I know. No, please, I give my word. As an animal, I give my word as an animal. Let me go." And the buzzard passed out. And when the monkey was sure that the buzzard had passed out, he very slowly relinquished his grip on the buzzard's neck. But while he had been gripping the buzzard, part of the buzzard's neck had slipped through his grip, which is why the buzzard has a little crook in his neck even to this day. And he stepped off the buzzard and he ran home. And his parents dealt with him, but that's another story. But the buzzard, because it had passed out with no oxygen, all of its colorful feathers had just faded. They lost all color, and they just turned motley and kind of black and off brown. And to this day, that buzzard has no color to his feathers, has that crook in his neck, and his eyes bulge, and he's not a very good-looking animal, not at all. But see, there are lessons to this story, as with most of the stories that griots tell. And one of them is don't be lazy, earn your keep, which is if you're supposed to hunt, hunt. Another lesson is, children, watoto, listen to your parents. And even when we're grown, we should listen to our elders, for often they have wisdom beyond our years. And the other story is, well, you must decide what the takeaway for you is in this tale. And just like the buzzard has tail feathers, this tale is at its end. Asante.
Oh, Baba, lovely and brilliant. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Right, should we go to Lincolnshire? And so Keith from Lincolnshire, and with a bit of an old building behind you that looks a bit like the top of Glastonbury, but go on. So what have you got behind you tonight?
It's just a dilapidated church. It's St Andrew's Church in a little place called Countsby, just down the road. But I just wanted to have a suitable background for this story, which I'm sure you all know, but it's one of my favourites and one of the first stories I learned. There was once a man who was very poor and lived in a very dilapidated cottage. And he worked with a hammer and chisel. And he worked as a stone cutter, cutting out, sometimes if he got a good commission, a statue, but sometimes it's just paving slabs, cutting out these slabs from the rock. But he was very poor and a bit fed up with his work and with his life. And then he heard lots of cheering and shouting. And he went over to the nearby village, and there was the king riding on a marvelous black stallion with a leather saddle and a beautiful silver bridle and a lovely ermine cloak and a golden crown. And he's leading a whole group of people, his courtiers and his army. And the poor man, he looked at the king, said, "Oh, if I was only a king with all that power." And suddenly, the powers from heaven heard him, and he was changed into a king. Well, he loved being a king, with all his beautiful robes and all his courtiers. And he had just a wonderful time, he'd have lots to eat. He was rich beyond compare. And he had a whole army that he could lead and to fight with. One day he was out riding in the countryside, and he saw lots of people, lots of men working in the fields. And they were sweating and they were very tired. And the soldiers behind him in his army, they were very, very weary because of the hot sun. The sun was so bright and so powerful, so hot. And the poor man, he said, "Oh, if only I was like the sun." And suddenly, the powers in the heaven changed him into the sun. And so he had a wonderful time. He was there, bright and shiny, yellow. He was there shining on the earth, and he was turning the corn to golden. And sometimes the ground was so dry because of the hot sun. And he was a wonderful time with all that power shining on the earth. But then there was a black cloud that came over in front of him and blotted out his sun rays from the earth. And he looked at this black cloud and thought, oh, the power of that cloud to blot out my sun rays. I wish I was a black cloud. And the powers in heaven changed him into a black cloud. And he grew bigger and bigger and bigger as that cloud. And he caused the rain and the storms to fall upon the earth. And the rain went down, and all the rain that's flooded through the streets and over all the grass and over the valleys, and it filled up the rivers and streams. Oh, and the power he had in causing all this rain to fall upon the earth. But in the middle of all that water was a rock, a big stone that just was immovable. And the man looked at this rock, this stone, and said, wow, what power that can stand against all that I'm throwing against it, with all the wind and the rain and the storms. Oh, I wish I was a big stone like that. Again, the powers in heaven heard him and changed him into a stone. And a big rock, he stood there very proud, and nothing could damage him, or the wind and the rain and the sun, nothing could harm him. But then, in the distance, there came a figure. There was a man carrying a tool bag. And he came up to the rock, and he took out from the tool bag a hammer and chisel and started to chip away at the man who was now a rock. And he looked at this workman with his hammer and chisel and said, oh, I wish I was a stone cutter. And the powers in heaven heard him, and he became a stone cutter again. And he continued on his work, a very contented man.
The stone cutter. That's a lovely story, Keith, and well told, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, so I've got some confusion here. So I'm going to go to what I believe is Zohair. Now, you've got glasses and you're wearing a baseball cap, my friend, and behind you is the World Storytelling Cafe. Now, that's you. Yeah, you're nodding. I've got you. Right, you're next. Okay. And then we're going to Despina. You're after here, Despina. And then I'm going to I've got another Zohair on I've got two other in front of me. One is an empty studio. Another is Zohair. Now, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong because it's Kaznayu. Right. And I want you to go after Despina if you're going to tell a story. But Zohair, it's nice to be in your company again, my friend. I'm looking forward to your story. Now that's you, Zohair, with the baseball cap and the glasses, with the World Storytelling Cafe.
That's Waleed, but Zohair was in the cafe. If you're seeing two, Zohair,
I'm seeing three. Okay.
Okay,
So
one
who's
with the
the one
baseball
with
cap is Waleed.
Is that Wally?
Hello.
Hello. Right.
There's
I'm getting
Hello,
confused.
can you hear me?
So you're going to have to help me out. Who's got the baseball cap on with the
You can hear me, right?
Yes, but you got an echo.
Okay. Yes, I know, because we need to cut down the volume from the cafe.
Right.
Okay, ready for my story?
Right. You tell your story now. Who's the fellow with the baseball cap?
He's the host.
That's
He's
Waleed.
the host.
Yeah.
That's Wally. Right. Wally, are you telling a story?
Yeah, next to you is okay.
Yeah, you go next. Okay? You go next. Okay. Despina, you'll go after. Okay. Right.
All right.
So here you go now. Okay.
Turn the volume down.
There is only one Zohair, and this is him.
Right, okay.
Mike, can I
Two
just
here.
tell you before I go, never mind.
Right. Everybody quiet. Zuhair, off you go.
Perfect. Let me just turn down the volume. So hello everyone,
Hello.
and welcome to my session. Once upon a long time ago, there was a young man. And my story is about this young man. This young man was a lumberjack. He works at the forest. He's a poor man. Poor as what? Doesn't have a lot of money in his pockets. But yeah, he's doing fine in his life. And he's a person that likes adventure. So one day, as he was in the forest, chopping some wood to sell it in the afternoon, he saw this big, massive dry tree. He decided to chop it all down. So he got really excited and he started chopping it all off. But the roots of that big tree were still on the ground, and he still had some energy, and he decided to remove those roots as well. He removed the roots, and he found a door beneath that tree. He opened the door, and he found some stairways leading downstairs. He went down and he found this beautiful palace, very beautifully decorated, fancy furniture all around the place, and a lot of chambers in that palace, but they were all empty. No human was there. You can find gold and silver. The other chamber is full of all colors of food. You name it, it was there, but no human whatsoever. And as he was roaming around and trying to discover that palace beneath the tree, he could hear someone moving in one of the chambers. He went to check and he found a beautiful girl standing in one of the chambers. But of course, not as beautiful as you ladies. So once that beautiful girl saw our young man, she got really shocked, surprised. She asked, "Who are you?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm Muhammad. I'm a lumberjack. I was like trying to remove a tree, but I found this at the door leading to your palace. How are you? Are you a human or a genie?" Because normally a human would live on the ground, not beneath. So she told him, "No, I am a princess. And on the day of my marriage, I was kidnapped. I was kidnapped by a genie who put me in his palace underneath this tree. He locked me here and he will visit me exactly 3 days and 3 nights every year. So it's been more than 8 years and I'm here all alone, all by myself, no human to talk to. So if you want, we still have 4 days for the genie to come. If you want, you can spend the 3 days with me." And that's what Muhammad did, the lumberjack, the young, poor lumberjack. He spent those 3 days laughing, enjoying his time with the princess. And after spending quite some time with her, they kind of fell in love with each other. But on the 3rd night, she told him that you need to go, because tomorrow morning, the genie is going to come for his yearly meeting with me. And then on his way back, he got curious and he turned back and he asked her, "But my lady, what about if I was a thief or a criminal wanting to kill you? How that genie will save you from me?" She told him, "Well, do you see that artwork hanged on the wall?" And he saw kind of a painting with some words written on it. She told him, "Well, that artwork, once I scrub my hands on it, the genie comes in no time, in a blink of an eye." She told him, "No, you must be kidding me. That's a fairy tale you are telling me. Actually, I don't even believe there is a genie coming to you. You'll just live here by yourself." And Muhammad, the young man, went and grabbed that artwork and he rubbed his hand on that artwork. while, of course, the princess was begging him to not do it. Once he rubbed his hand, smoke came from the ground to the skies. The earth shook, and strange voices filled the whole palace. Muhammad, the lumberjack, ran away to hide himself, and the genie appeared in front of his lover, telling her, "Oh, my love, my sweet love, why did you summon me tonight? Aren't you aware that I am going to come tomorrow to you? I still have work tonight. I still have things to attend to." She said, "No, actually it was just by mistake. I was sleeping and the artwork was next to me, and by mistake, I rubbed my hand on it. So just don't mind my mistake. Off you go to your work." And when he turned back to fly away, he spotted a saw and a pair of shoes. And he said, "Tell me, you liar, you cheater. Who was in my palace? You brought a man in my palace. After all I've done to you, building this palace that no one else on earth saw before. Now you're cheating on me." Surely no, you're mistaken. I did not cheat on you with anyone, and no one came here. You know, it's your palace is under the ground. And he told her, "How did you know that my palace is under the ground?" Well, you don't really need to answer. But in 1 hour, I will bring that man who was here. And he flew away. Now, Muhammad, who heard this, he ran with his life, ran as fast as he could, throwing one feet after the other until he reached his city. And he reached his friend's shop, who was a tailor. He told him, "Oh my God, my friend, please save me, hide me, someone is going to kill me." And the tailor, his friend, told him, go to my shop, close it to you and hide yourself there. And that's what he did. And as he was tired from running all that distance from the forest to the city, he immediately fell asleep. Now, after 1 hour, there was a priest who was coming to the souk, to the local market, carrying 2 pairs of shoes and a saw, and calling the people in the souk for whoever lost some shoes and the saw in the forest, "Come forward so I can give it to you." Now, the tailor recognized his friend's shoes and his saw, and he asked the priest to hand it to him. "They belong to my friend, give it to me, I'll give it to him." He told him, "But where is your friend?" "Well, he's at my shop, but it's okay, just give me his stuff." And in a blink of an eye, the priest disappeared. Now here, the tailor got really suspicious, went to check on his friend in the shop, and he did not find his friend. Muhammad, the lumberjack, was kidnapped by that genie and was taken to the palace next to the princess. Once Muhammad gained consciousness, he saw the princess and the genie in that palace. "What am I doing here? Who are you?" And then the genie asked the princess, "Do you know this young man?" "No, I don't know him. First time I see him in my life." "All right, young man, do you know this lady?" "No, I don't know, and I don't know where I am. Who are you? Why did you kidnap me?" And then the genie unsheathed his sword and gave it to the princess. "If you don't know him, kill him." She looked at Muhammad with eyes filled with tears, and she dropped the sword. "No, I can't kill an innocent soul. I don't know him, I told you." The genie grabbed the sword from the ground and gave it to Muhammad. "Well, if you don't know her and you've never seen her in your life, off with her head, kill her." "No, I can't. She didn't kill me. She decided not to kill me when she had the chance. How can I do so?" And Muhammad dropped the sword. The genie picked the sword, and I'm sorry if it gets bloody here, and he cut off the head of the princess. Muhammad fell on his knees, crying and telling the genie, "Why did you kill her? She's an innocent soul. She did not do anything to deserve all of this. Why did you kill her? And he told him, don't worry. You will die as well. You will follow her. So Muhammad heard this, and he begged the genie to give him a couple of minutes to pray for the last time. The genie laughed and giggled, and he told him, no, you're not going to have an easy day. Here, the genie brought a pot, a golden pot, and he brought a bottle. In that bottle, there was a liquid whiter than milk. He poured that liquid in the pot, and he started mumbling some strange words and sentences that Muhammad could not understand. And in no time, that liquid started boiling as though there is fire beneath. And the genie threw the water on Muhammad and commanded that Muhammad is to be witched from a human to a damned monkey. As Muhammad was begging, no, please, he became a monkey. The genie grabbed the monkey and flew to the skies, and he threw the monkey in a strange land. Once the monkey gained back his consciousness, Muhammad gained back his consciousness, he realized he's the monkey and he's in a strange land. He looked around and he found all monkeys that God created on earth were in that exact island. So the other monkeys smelled human out of Muhammad, and they did not want him to be one of them. They threw bananas, rocks. They started biting him, fighting him. So to Muhammad, the monkey, ran away with his life. And he found the hell. He climbed that hill, and on top of the hill, he looked back and he saw that the green hill became black with all that number of monkeys following him. He looked the other side and he saw the ocean. It was a cliff. The end of that hill was a cliff. And he decided to try to have a chance on the sea. He threw his body into that vast ocean and he started swimming. A couple of hours passed by. He grew so tired with his small arms and small feet. He did not sail far away from that island. But here, he could spot a ship. It was a merchant's ship. He climbed up that ship, and the merchants that were there started running after the monkey, trying to push him away, to throw him out of that ship. He's a monkey and coming from the sea. We don't know that. He might be a genie. We don't know who's that creature. Monkeys don't live on the sea. As Muhammad the monkey started roaming around and running from those merchants, he found one of the chambers. And that's the captain's chamber. He went there and he hugged his leg. The captain looked at the monkey and he could understand that the monkey was asking for mercy. And the captain stopped the merchants. He told them, this monkey is under my protection. If he ruins anything, if he does any damage to you, I am the one to pay you back. So the merchants accepted, and the monkey, Muhammad the monkey, lived in that ship. Well, the first day, it was already dinner time. Dinner was served on the deck of the ship. Everyone was eating, and the captain shared his food with the monkey. Now here, as the monkey started eating, the captain looked at him, and he was eating with grace, like a decent human being. And he looked at those hungry merchants around him, and they were eating savagely. He laughed at them. Look at this animal, how he is eating with grace. And you, human beings, you are eating like animals. Well, a couple of days passed by, and everyone on that ship loved Monkey, and they gave him a name, Masoud the monkey. Whenever someone needs a cup of water, a snack, an apple, anything. Masoud is to, they call Masoud, and he will do whatever they ask him to do. Now, after a month of sailing, they reached Indian soil. Merchants want to go to India to sell their merchandise. They were stopped by the royal guards. And the royal guards handed a piece of paper to every merchant on that ship and asked them to write their merchandise. So the letters will be taken to the King of India, and he will see what to be sold and what to be kept on the ship. So as the merchants were busy writing all their merchandise, there was Hassan, the merchant. He was an illiterate man. He does not know how to read nor how to write. He begged one merchant after the other to write for him, but all of them were busy. Now Masoud came down and he grabbed his jalaba, his outfit, and he made a sign that, let me write for you. I can write. Let me do this task. And he kicked him away, telling him, go away, you damned monkey. Even humans can't write. Now you are asking me to write my letter for me. And the merchants laughed at him. They told him, well, Merchant Hassan, it's time for you to learn how to read and write. Now even monkeys know how to do so. And Masoud stole the letter from that merchant and he ran away. The merchant went to complain to the captain. He found Masoud already there. He told him, Captain, we told you so. Take that monkey out of the ship. Now he stole away my letter. How can I write? And they had merchandise to sell in India. He told him, don't worry. Masoud only wants to write the letter for you. No, monkeys don't write. Well, give him a chance. If he ruins your letter, I will give you mine. I haven't written mine yet. Well, merchants gathered around, formed a circle around Masoud the monkey. Masoud sat down, he was handed a pen. And he started the letter with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, with a very beautiful Arabic calligraphy. And before he wrote the merchandise of that merchant, he wrote 2 verses of poetry praising the king, the Sultan of India. And then he wrote the merchandise of Hassan, the merchant. Letters were collected and were given to the Sultan. Well, the Sultan with his prime minister, his brother, were checking the merchandise. This to be sold, this to be kept. Until his eyes spotted that letter with the poetry on it. He read the poetry and he really loved it. He felt flattered. This is a very beautiful poetry written about me. And he asked a couple of his guards to go to the ship and bring whoever wrote the letter, put him on the royal horse and make him wear my crown and my royal cloak and bring him all around the city before you bring him in front of me in my palace. The guards went there to the ship. They asked the captain, who wrote the letter? To whom does this letter belong? And then the captain said, do you want the owner of the merchandise on that ship? Or do you want the one who wrote the letter? Well, actually, we don't care about the merchandise. We only care about the one who wrote the letter. Well, the one who wrote the letter is a monkey. Those guards laughed and said, we know that you Arabs like to call each other's names. Well, bring that person, even though his name is a monkey. No, actually, he is a monkey. Masoud, come over here. And the monkey went down. And he stood next to the captain and those 2 guards. The guards were really surprised. He's really a monkey. What should we do? We have orders from the Sultan. What can we do right now? Well, we only have to obey the Sultan. And they put that monkey, Masoud, on the royal horse and made him wear the royal crown and the royal cloak. and he was roaming on the horse around the city. Well, the people of that city started laughing and thinking that the Sultan went mad. He's crazy. The Sultan made a monkey ride his horse and with grace roam around the city. What's the meaning of this? And by the end of the day, they reached the royal palace in front of the Sultan. The Sultan saw a monkey on his horse. What is this? Why there is a monkey on my horse in my palace? I asked you to go and bring the one who wrote the letter, not an animal. As he was dragging those guards to be punished, the captain interfered and said, "No, Your Majesty, the monkey is the one who wrote the letter you asked for." Well, monkeys now write letters? What is the meaning of this? He said, "Yes, indeed, Your Majesty. He's the one who wrote the letter. Masoud, did you write the letter?" And Masoud, the monkey, nodded. He confirmed. "Well, Captain, you look like a decent, honest man. I'm not going to call you a liar, but let's put the monkey into a test." They gave a piece of paper to the monkey, and he was asked to write a similar letter. And that's what Masoud did. But this time, he wrote better poetry praising the Sultan as he saw him in person. After checking that letter, the Sultan really admired that monkey. He asked the captain, can you sell it to me? Name the price I give it to, and they will give it to you." The captain said, "No, Your Majesty. I really love that monkey. I cannot sell it. But if you want, I can give it to you as a gift." Of course, the Sultan accepted the gift and he gave the gift back. That captain was rewarded with piles of gold and silver, and he sailed away. Let's go back to the Sultan and the monkey Masoud. Wherever the Sultan goes, Masoud follows. They all go together. Even in the ruling diwan, in the ruling court, the Sultan sits beside the monkey. Now here, the Sultan of India had a funny story with his brother, with the Prime Minister. They always play chess, but he never wins against his brother. And one day, Masoud was watching them playing chess in one of the chambers of the palace. The king was about to do a wrong move that will make him lose the game. He grabbed his hand, he stopped him, and he showed him a better move to do. And this time the Sultan won for the first time in his life against his brother. This made him love Masoud so much. And as they were playing, guards came and they informed the Sultan of India that his daughter, who was traveling to Greece, came back. Well, the Sultan had missed his daughter and asked the guards to go and call for her. When his daughter stepped into the chamber in which her father and uncle were playing chess, she wore a veil around her face. A gentle smile was worn by the Sultan. He told her, "My love, my daughter, why are you wearing a veil around your face?" "Well, father, there is a stranger in the room." "Who is stranger?" "I'm your father, he's your uncle, and it's just a monkey." "No, my father, he's not a monkey. His name is Muhammad, and he's a lumberjack coming from another land, and he was bewitched into a monkey." "Well, daughter, are you crazy? What are you telling me right now? He's a monkey, can't you see? How can this monkey be a human?" "No, he is." And the Sultan looked at the monkey. "Are you a human for real?" The monkey nodded. "But my daughter, how did you know all of this?" "Well, father, you have to know, when I went to Greece to see my aunt, I learned witchcraft. For the good reasons, of course. And now, if you allow me, I can do something to help that monkey, to help Muhammad the monkey. Well, please do. And then she went back to her room. She brought a pot, a golden pot, and a bottle with a liquid. As I told you before, whiter than milk. She poured that liquid into the pot, and she started mumbling and repeating some strange words that no one in that room could understand. That liquid started boiling without fire. She threw the liquid on the monkey, and she commanded that he becomes a human once again, if Allah, if God Almighty allows him to be. And Masood the monkey, as that water was so hot, he was saying, I pain, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, I'm human again. He became a human again. He hugged the Sultan, and he hugged his brother, the minister, and he hugged the Sultan's daughter, who saved him and saved his life and saved him from all that pain that he was going through as a monkey. But in no less than 1 hour, Muhammad, the lumberjack who was a monkey before, was telling the king his story and where he comes from and what happened to him. Some strange noises were heard in the palace, and some doors split open, and smoke came from those doors. And in a blink of an eye, the genie who bewitched Muhammad the first time appeared in front of him. But this time he did not talk to Muhammad. He talked to the daughter of the king, the princess. He told her, don't we have an agreement that you don't touch my work and they don't touch yours? So there is no agreement with someone like you. You are evil, and you did evil to this poor young lad. And he told her what it is. And they started fighting with magic. When he becomes an eagle, she becomes a pigeon. When he becomes a fish, she will become a fish and follow him underwater. They started fighting with magic. But let's make the long story short. She could overcome and overwhelm that genie with fire. She opened the door of fire and she could kill him. But as we believe, when a genie dies, he flies to the sky and explodes. And that's what happened to the genie in our story. He exploded. And the smallest spark from that explosion hit Muhammad the lumberjack in his left eye, and he became blind from his left eye. But unfortunately, the biggest ash, the biggest spark from that explosion hit the princess in her chest that made her die. Her father, the king, the Sultan of India, became so mad, so furious, that he asked Muhammad the lumberjack to leave his city and never come back again to his city nor his country. This is how Muhammad, the blind beggar who became a beggar, begged his way out of India to Morocco, and he's the first blind man of the story of the legendary 3 Moroccan blind men. Well, the next time I'll tell you a story, I will tell you about the second blind man. And this is how my story comes to an end. And of course, everyone lived happily ever after until the end of time. And this is the end of my story. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, that was lovely. Thank you very much. Now, that was the first time I think we've had a live performance from the Storytelling Centre in Marrakesh, and I'm looking forward. I'm going to pop over in November myself, so I can be able to meet.
We've had many performances.
Yeah, I'm coming over. I'm going to do one of these from the store. We're getting all the technical bits sorted out and everything else. So thank you very much for that. We've been sat here an hour and a half now, so I'm going to call a 5-minute comfort break, so everybody can just drop the screens. You can come on and unmute yourself and have a chat if you want to for a few minutes. If you want to nip off and go to the toilet, stick yourselves on mute or take your videos down or whatever it is. But I've always said this, and I'm sticking to it. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I will sit here, so everybody who wants to tell a story will be able to tell a story, and that's what I do, and that's what I love doing. So I'm.
You muted yourself, Mike.
Hey,
Everybody's
Baba C.
been wonderful. Yes, sir.
Baba C. No, shh. Don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Don't tell him.
That's a good.
The other Mike thought that was funny too.
Rona, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Oh, so
Yes.
good to see you. So good to see you.
I'm glad to be back. I've been away for a while.
Yeah, where you
We're
been?
glad you're back.
I was in Italy for the last couple of months,
Okay.
and for about 90% of the time I had no Zoom
Okay.
because
Ooh.
of Brexit, believe it or not.
It's not a bad
Oh.
thing.
It's a very
Bye,
bad thing.
Diana, before you go, have you gone? She's gone. You know, I'm still trying.
Hold on just for
Baba
a
C,
moment.
Baba C.
While Zoel was telling the story, I went to one of the other Zoers and I could see him sitting in front of the camera telling the story and the audience watching him while we were watching him on the big screen.
Truly.
It was very, very interesting.
Amazing. Yeah. You know,
Okay, rattle
I'm,
on.
I'm still trying to find out where I got that story about the Scottish couple.
Yes,
Uh,
and I've been looking. I haven't been able to find that, but you've sent me the basics of the story. So
It's such a great story.
yeah, I'm
Ah,
working on
it's-
it. I haven't told it yet, and I'm not going to tell it tonight. I would rather have had a chance to look at it because I've thought of something else tonight because I've been invited to Marrakesh again
Oh,
in February,
you're coming
and
this
this
time.
time I can come.
Yes,
Yay!
yes.
I
I'm
couldn't
doing
come
the
the
happy
last
dance.
time because I was mid-project, and
Mm,
it wouldn't have been fair to drop off in the middle of a project. But I cannot wait to come this
it
time.
was a difficult time.
And my
Oh,
daughter has
so
just told me that she's going to buy my flight for me. Yes!
All right.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Brilliant.
very excited. I can't wait.
It's going to be so much fun. The Irish contingent, there's going to be an Irish contingent there.
I know. And a Scottish contingent. So it's
Oh,
all the kilts.
Lord have
You better
mercy.
watch out.
Wait. Are they ready? Irish, Scottish, African American, Jamaican.
I'm working on a Greek one.
Lord
All right.
Yeah.
have
Oh,
mercy.
Marrakesh will not be ready.
Lord have
No
mercy.
disrespect.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hey, Baden, I hear you were in Herefordshire. I hear you came over to Bromyard.
I was at Bromyard. Yeah, I impersonated John Rowe for a day.
Right, I didn't know you were there. I'd have come and found you. I didn't know you were there. That's my local stomping ground. This is where we live. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I was there on the Saturday standing in for John Rowe. That was quite an experience.
So I hope you enjoyed meeting, because half the people who go to Bromyard they're either friends or relatives. Okay.
Oh, okay. It was it was a bit of a surreal experience because two things happened. One, I stupidly invited like a small family group, 2 young people, to follow me around for the day. And I said to them, they came in on the end of a storytelling gig, and I said, anywhere you see me in the festival, just come up to me and I'll tell you a story.
Oh.
I know. And their mum buttonholed me outside the building and said, you really shouldn't have done that. At one point, I counted 15 stories that I told them
Whoa.
over the
Wow.
course of the afternoon. And they turned up at a late night gig that I was doing, like started at 9:30, they finished at 11:30. They rolled in about 10 o'clock and they sat there at the yes. And then
I love it.
the next day, I went in just to meet up with John to like sort out some stuff. They are bumped. I don't know, but you're incredible. These kids have never sat quietly and listened to anything or anybody. But you know, thank you. Because like basically, I babysat her kids.
she'd be in the beer tent giving it some of that, yeah. Quite right.
No, this is Hereford show. It's not a beer tent, it's a cider tent. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't sell beer.
It only goes to prove to you the power of storytelling. It reminds me of a friend of mine. I told stories about 10 or 15 years ago, and she was amazed because she has one son that has attention deficit and another that's autistic. And she says they've never sat still. They sat still through your entire program, and they've been talking about it for the next 5 or 7 years. And they recognize me on the street. So I'm not talking about me, but the power of storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that strong.
Oh,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We see it. We see it all the time now.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Right. So I'm going to get started again. Right. So here we go. So
hey, he's cut me off. I was going to tell the other bit of the story.
He's a wise person.
Oh, go on. Go on. Tell me I like stories about Bromley. Go on.
The other thing is that the whole village turns into a venue.
Yes.
Dancers. Point.
Yeah.
Fascinated. I thought I was back in the 70s, where I'm not going to go back in the 70s, but I've never dancers in one. It's free.
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit for me. I can't hear you, some of it.
No, man.
No. Well, I'm really pleased you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you back on the Welsh March again. Okay?
It was great. It was great.
Right. So now then, now Wally, is it Wally? Wally, from the World Storytelling Cap. I'm going back to the chat with the baseball cap and the glasses. Are you telling stories tonight? Were you?
Okay. Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to you. After this one, it's you, Despina. Okay. You're next. Okay. After this one. Okay.
Just in case, I'm very beginner,
Okay. Everybody needs to mute themselves.
Okay, you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so a long time ago, there was a huge apple tree. A little boy loved to come and play around it every day. He climbed to the treetop, ate the apples, took a nap under the shadow. He loved the tree, and the tree loved to play with him. Time went by. The little boy had grown up and no longer played around the tree every day. One day, the boy came back to the tree and he looked sad. And he said, "Come and play with me." The tree asked the boy, "I'm no longer a kid. I don't play around. I don't play around trees anymore." The boy replied, "I want toys. I need money to pay them. Sorry, but I don't have money. But you can pick all my apples and sell them. So you will have money." The boy was so excited, he grabbed all the apples on the tree and left happily. The boy never came back after he picked all apples. The tree was sad. One day, the boy who knew turned into a man returned, and the tree was excited. come and play with me. The tree said, I don't have time to play. I have to work for my family. We need a house for shelter. Can you help me? And he said, sorry, but I don't have any house. But you can chop off my branches to build your house. So the man cut all the branches of the tree and lived happily. The tree was glad to see him happy, but the man never came back since then. The tree was again lovely and sad. One hot summer day, the man returned and the tree was delighted. Come and play with me. The tree said, I'm getting old. I want to get silent to relax myself. Can you give me a boat? Said man, use my okay. Said the man, use my trunk to build your boat. You can sail for a way and be happy. So the man cut the tree trunk to make a boat. He went sailing and never showed up for a long time. Finally, the man returned after many years. Sorry, my boy, but I don't have anything for you anymore. No more apples for you. The tree said, no problem. I don't have any teeth to pit. The man replied, no more trunk for you to climb on. I'm too old for that now. The man said, I really cannot give you anything. The only thing left is my dying road. The tree said with tears, I don't need much now, just a place to rest. I'm tired after all these years. The man replied, good. All three roads are the best place to lean on and rest. Come sit down with me and rest. The man sat down and the tree was glad and smiled with tears. This is you and the tree is your parent. That's it.
That was great, Ollie. Thank you very much. That was
Thank
lovely.
you so much.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. So you speak English. Which other languages do you speak?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So which other languages do you speak? You speak English. You speak.
Yeah, English and Arabic and a little bit French.
So that's 3 languages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that is a real talent in itself to speak languages and to be able to tell a story in what is not your mother tongue is a real talent as well.
It's my first
Thank
time.
you. Well done. Well done. Thank you very much. Well done. Well
Thank
done. Yeah, okay. Well done. Yeah. Right. And don't be late in 2 weeks' time. When I'm back here in 2 weeks' time, don't be late. You have to come and tell another story. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to meet you face to face in November. I'm coming over.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Despina, we got to you.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello. Right.
It's
Okay.
a bit
After
late for me, to be honest. It's a 11:15 here, so I'll just say a quickie, as Babasi says, right?
Oh, I didn't realise it was that late.
That's perfectly all right.
Okay.
It's okay. So, okay, I've told you stories about the great god Zeus before. So, we've heard tales about him and his behavior, especially towards women. And yeah, he's well known, Babasi. And he was well known back then to everyone involved. Hera being one of those who had seen what a womanizer he was. So when he started making advances towards her, she fled. She hid in the garden of the Hesperides. And there she was accompanied by the Hesperide nymphs, and they kept her company. But some little bird told Zeus where she was hiding, and he knew he could not be straightforward because he would be shown away again. So he had to use a trick. So he gathered all these gray big clouds in the sky. Rain started pouring, and he turned himself into a cuckoo bird. So this little cute gray bird flew towards Hera there at the Garden of the Hesperides, and Hera just saw the bird, and it was so cute, so little, with slight brown stripes on its little chest, and she felt sorry for the bird. It was so wet and was cuckooing so sadly that she took it in her arms to protect it. And then when he was inside her arms, Zeus turned into his original self. So after that, after the union, well, they decided they would get married after all. So everybody was invited. Of course, it was a huge wedding, like an enormous event. So a huge feast on Mount Olympus, all the gods, goddesses, names, whatever, you name it, you call it, whatever you want. Everybody was invited, and everybody had to attend. And everybody did, except for one nymph. Her name was Achelon. So Achelon was a little bit lazy. She used to turn up a little bit late, like I did today, sorry. But it was a custom for her. She was always like that. So when they saw that everybody was there, all the guests were there, but she was not, Hermes. Well, he was in charge of bringing the guests. When he realized, he knew he was going to get in trouble. He was going to get in trouble for her missing. So he flew with his helmet and his sandals back to her house, where she was still fast asleep late in the morning. And he furiously knocked on her door, trying to wake her up, and she went like, yes, I'm coming, one moment. Hermes on the outside, you know it is Zeus and Hera's wedding, right? Where are you? Everybody's there. Yes, I'm just braiding my hair. I'll be there in a minute. So Hermes says, I have to be back. Don't you be late now. No, of course I will. I'm just powdering my nose. I'll be right with you, she said. So Hermes was back, waiting for her. And time went by, and she took her time. She did everything with leisure. So when she was ready and left her house and started walking towards the wedding feast, she saw that the guests were leaving. So she realized that she had been extremely late, so the party would be over by now. There was not really much point in her going now, so she returned to her house. And of course, they realized she was missing, and of course, Hermes was told off. So Hermes was furious. He went back to her house, banged on the door. Helone, where are you? And she said, yeah, that's, well, I thought that, I missed the party. I might as well just sleep a little more. And Hermes said, so you like sleeping in? I know. You like your house so much. You never want to leave it, do you? And there was this great big bang and crash, and things started changing, and all of a sudden the house was up in the air, and it started changing form, descending on top of Helone, who took a serpent-like form, and was from that day and on to today transformed into a tortoise, which in Greek is Helona. And this is how Helonas came to be.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that was lovely. Tortoises. Oh, that was a new one to me. So, right. So we're going to Janet, then we're going to Rona, then we go to Baden. Okay, so that's going to be the order. So we're going to wrap that up. Right, so Janet, Rona, then Baden, and then we've got a couple more to do after that. Okay, so Janet, over to you in Staffordshire.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Despina, for that story. I love that story. I heard a slightly different version of it, but I always loved it. And I always look at a tortoise and think, well, perhaps you really are beautiful under there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad you come back in, Baden, because I wanted to make a comment also about being a little bit late. And I put a comment about island time, right? And the reason I put the comment was the story that I've got for you is influenced by the islands. And it's a story that I love, and it brings back memories for me because I was on one of the islands with my partner some time ago, and I'd been asked by one of my relatives to search for a tombstone, a gravestone. And it was difficult because the cemetery was very neglected. But I found it, and I was making a record, taking a photograph and writing things down. My partner started jumping up and down and hopping about. And I turned and I said, "Don't do that. You're distracting me. This is a cemetery, a graveyard. Have a bit more respect." But he didn't stop. He was jumping up and down and adding some very colourful, descriptive language. And I said, "Stop it." I didn't. And then I realised he was actually standing in an ant's nest. Not the little black ants, but the big red fiery ants. And they'd crawled into his shoes and up his thighs and legs. And he's jumping up and down and up and down. And I'm sorry, so I finished what I was doing. I think we went and bought some bottled water and made it a little better. But this story reminds me of that particular incident. It's a children's story, and it comes from this book. You maybe cannot see it. Let me see. But it's Miss Mary and Her Monkey, and it's Guyanese stories, children's story collected by Paula Denise Williams. Now, I don't know you can get this book in England because I actually bought it in Bonaire, and I haven't seen it around here. Bought it from the Flamingo bookshop in Bonaire. It's just a very short story, and it features one of two brothers. On the islands, you sometimes get stories, particularly the Southern Islands, about Stupidity Bill and Sensi Bill. And this is Sensi Bill's short story. Now, Sensi Bill and Stupidity Bill like to find food, right? They search things, they play tricks to get the best out of life. And Sensi Bill, he heard that the king was wanting to marry off his daughter, and he would let his daughter marry the man who had something about him. He would have to be steadfast, but he'd have to be clever. He'd have to be able to endure difficulties. And he devised a plan. He said that any man who could stand in the nest of the red ants for 1 minute could marry his daughter. Now, that doesn't seem very long unless you've actually encountered a red ant's nest, and you've got to stand there without leaving for 1 minute. Lots of the young men from the island thought, well, this is a good thing. I'll marry this woman. It's be easy, just stand there. But of course, it's not. They bite, and you just can't stand still. Well, Sensi Bill thought, I've got to have a plan here. I want to marry the king's daughter, because if I marry the king's daughter, I can live in luxury for the rest of my life. What shall I do? He thought about it. He looked down at his hands, at his nails, and he said, I know. I will tell them all a story. So he stood in the ant's nest and he began to tell a story. It has to be very short. And he said, I am going to tell you a story of my grandfather's pajamas. And the most exciting thing about the pajamas is they were striped, very striped. Striped the bottom around the ankles, striped at the knees, striped right away, and the jacket was striped. And every night he would wear his striped pajamas. Well, of course, you've all understood what the trick is. He was standing still, but describing the stripes, he's scratching and scratching and scratching, and the fiery ants are biting and biting and biting, and he can hardly stand there, but he stood there scratching, and now about 30 seconds have gone by, and it's agony, so agony that he explains, and he wore those pajamas for so long that the fabric, it wore out, and so he had to patch and patch and patch. He had to put a patch in, patch here, patch there, patch there, patch, 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 patch. Well, at the end of one long, very scratchy, patchy minute, everybody clapped their hands, and Sensi Bill got to marry the king's daughter and live in luxury for the rest of his life.
Oh, that's lovely, Janet. And I think I'll see you tomorrow morning at our meeting. So,
all right.
Right. So we're going to Rona, then we're going to Baden, then we'll wrap it up. So here we go. And we've got Nuala from Inniskillen, and I've got Sally Morales, right? And so we'll see where we are. So Rona next, and then Baden. You have to unmute yourself, Rona.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks, guys, for hanging around to hear this. I hope it's worth your while. I discovered when I got back from Italy a message from John Rowe telling me that I was invited to Marrakesh again this year. So I'm coming, well, 2023. I couldn't make it in 2022 because I had another project going on that would have been rude to step out of. So I'm delighted about that. But it made me think about what kind of stories would I tell if I was in Marrakesh? And I thought about this one. It's a story about a young woman who frequented the marketplace in Marrakesh. I know there are many of them, but one particular one, she was a familiar face. A rather beautiful young woman, and had her sights set on moving on. And she would ask everybody, you know, she travelled around all the different stalls every day, and she said, do you think it'll happen today? Do you think he'll come today? And the he was her knight in shining armour. She was waiting for her knight in shining armour to turn up and whisk her off to a land of wonderfulness and happiness ever after. And the reason that she thought that this would happen was because she felt as if she deserved this. She would say, I've been so good, I'm so kind. I've never done anything wrong to anybody, so I deserve to have a good life. And I'm waiting. I know my knight in shining armour is going to turn up one day. Well, people were getting a little bit fed up of this every day. Do you think he's going to come today? Do you think it will be today? Nobody said, what do you think is going to happen today? Because they all knew. And one day she got as far as the storyteller again, whose stall was at the very, very end of the market. But she had seen everything that was going on, and she knew everything that was happening. And when the young lady said to her for the umpteenth time, do you think it will be today? Do you think he'll come today? The storyteller said, just remind me again, why is it that you think this knight in shining armor is going to come and take you away to wonderfulness and happiness ever after? And the young girl said, well, I've told you countless times, I have a perfect heart, so I deserve to have this. You have a perfect heart? I didn't know that. Well, I've told you before, you've obviously not been listening. The storyteller had indeed been listening. Can you show me your perfect heart? She said. And the young woman had been telling everybody about this perfect heart of hers, but nobody had actually seen it, because of course you can't actually see somebody's heart unless you're a storyteller. And the storyteller said, show me your heart. And the young woman peeled back her blouse, and sure enough, her heart was exposed, and it was perfect. Not a blemish, not a scratch, not a bruise, nothing. I'm sorry to tell you, my dear girl, that's not a perfect heart. What do you mean? Of course it's a perfect heart. Look, it's absolutely unblemished and perfectly shaped and perfectly formed. Yes, that's what makes it imperfect, said the storyteller. Shall I show you mine? And the young girl said, well, yes, if you must. And the storyteller said, I must. You need to know what a perfect heart looks like. And she peeled back her blouse and exposed her heart to the young girl, who she allowed to be able to see it. Oh no. Oh, that's terrible. It was cut and bruised and battered, and bits had been forced in here, and bits were sticking out there. And no, that's all wrong. What's happened to you? Did you have an accident? What? There's not. No, said the storyteller. The reason why I tell you that your heart is imperfect is because it's never been used. What do you mean? What do you mean it's never been used? Well, how do you use your heart? Well, you give it away in little pieces. And every time you give a piece of your heart to somebody, somebody else will give you a piece to fit. But they don't always fit. Sometimes they're too small. Sometimes they're too big. You give a piece of your heart away. Yes. And what you see here is because I have given my heart 1,000 times to the people that I love. Have you never given a piece of your heart to anybody? Well, who would I give it to? Said the girl. Your mother? Do you love your mother? She said, yes, I love my mother. She's my mother. But how much do you love your mother? How much do you think of her? How much do you wish only the best for your mother? Well, I love my mother, but I'd never thought about giving her my heart. How does that work? She said, it's automatic, my dear. When you love somebody enough, a piece of your heart will go to them anyway. Oh, I see. Well, who should I give a piece of my heart to now? Would you like to give a piece of your heart to me? And I'll give you a piece of mine in return. Oh, yes, I think that would work, because I do love you, you know. I've heard you tell so many stories, and I've heard you change people's lives with the stories you tell. Yes, I love what you do. And the storyteller said, well, that's enough. If you love what I do, that's enough. And she swapped pieces of heart with that young woman. And the young woman said, doesn't look the same anymore. Doesn't look perfect, but it feels different. And the storyteller said, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. And every time you give away a little piece of your heart and you get a little piece back, that's how you'll feel. You'll feel a little bit different. Well, the young woman skipped away after she'd spoken to the storyteller, and the smile on her face went from ear to ear. That was something else that she hadn't done very often, but she was doing it all the time now. Oh, now my knight in shining armor will come, because I'm going to give a piece of my heart to my mum and to my little brother and to my grandma, and I'm going, oh yes, I'm going to end up with a perfect heart. And I think she did, because do you know what happened just a few days later? A young man rode in to the market on a handsome steed, and that young girl was never seen again. I can only hope that she had her wish and lived in wonderfulness and happiness ever after.
Wow.
Rona, I've missed you. You can't go to Italy for 2 months every year. I'm not going to allow you. You've got to be here and tell me stories. I'm missing you. Right. Okay. So we're going to go to Baden first.
Oh my God, Rona, my heart is in a million pieces. How will I put them all together again? Oh, that was amazing, amazing, amazing story.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to tell a story that I've not told before. I heard it at Gawier, actually. And I'm going to give it a shot because I love this story, and I have permission from the person who told it. It turns out it's an original story that he actually wrote himself. It's called The Blue Violin. There's a market, and imagine the scene early in the morning. Everybody's arriving, setting out their stalls, putting out their wares, and suddenly there's a clip, clop of horses' hooves as a family arrives in a horse-drawn wagon, family of travelers. In a less enlightened time, we'd have called them gypsies. And they start setting up, hanging their wares out on the sides of the wagon. And from inside the wagon emerges a little boy holding a blue violin, and he starts playing. He's maybe 8, 9 years old, but the sounds that he's extracting from this instrument are just astonishing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful music. And everyone stops what they're doing. The people turning up in the market, they ignore everyone else and they start gathering around this wagon where this young boy is standing on the platform at the back of the wagon playing. And they gather, and the crowd grows and grows and grows. And every now and again, he stops. He's only young. He needs to stop to take a rest. And when he stops to rest, of course, the people who've gathered start looking at and they think, oh, yes, of course I could do with some clothespins. Some tea towels. Yes. Oh, and so the family are doing a roaring trade. And then he plays again. And this carries on all day. And by the end of the day, the village is just buzzing with the talk of this family and this young lad and his blue violin. And everybody's excited because they're thinking, you know what? Word will get around and people will come from all around and we've got to, and then everybody's thinking, he can't be playing that violin. Not at that age. It must be a magic violin because this is a small village. These are simple people. It's a bit like Bromyard, actually, Mike, you know, and not much happens in Bromyard. And the arrival of a family with a wagon, with a young child playing a violin is going to set the whole place on fire. So they think it's magic. It must be. It's got to be magic. So the word goes around and everybody's really excited and everybody's really happy because, of course, this is going to bring people in from all the way around miles. You know, forget the bloody folk festival. I mean, we've got a magic violin. You know, this is going to bring people in, not just from the immediate surroundings in, you know, Herefordshire. People are going to turn up from all over. People are going to travel down from Scotland. They're going to come from London. And, oh, the buzz is incredible. And everybody's happy. Well, I say everybody. Upstairs in the one building that has 2 stories is a miserable old codger. No, it's not Mike Rust. He doesn't live in Bromyard. He's nearby, but it's not him. It's the accountant, the bookkeeper, the man who keeps the ledger for all the businesses in the town. And he's looking out of his window and he's staring down at the people, enjoying the music, enjoying the gift that this young lad has brought to the village. And he slams his window shut and retreats to the furthest corner of the building. But even there, he can't escape the sound. It creeps under the shutters, under the cracks in the door, through the cracks in the window, and it reaches him because we are talking about beauty. We're talking about joy, and it cannot be escaped. And at the end of the afternoon, the family have packed everything away and they take their wagon off to the forest and they make camp for the night. And the miserable old codger decides, having listened to the whispers going around the town about this magic violin, which has brought joy to the village, because in some deep recess of his soul, he actually wanted to be an artist. He wanted to be a musician. And he thinks, I'm going to get that violin. So when all of the village is asleep, he sneaks out of his office / home / cave / miserable dwelling. And he finds where that family is living in the forest. And while they're fast asleep, he sneaks into their wagon and he steals the blue violin. And he walks off into the deepest recess of the forest. And he takes the bow and he tries to play the violin. It's a magic violin. All he has to do is scrape the bow across the strings and those beautiful sounds will emerge. But of course, that doesn't happen. The most horrendous emerges from it. And he tries and he tries, and no matter how hard in fact, the harder he tries, the worse the sounds get. And in sheer frustration, he breaks the violin across his knee, he snaps the bow in half, and then he retreats even deeper into the forest, and he finds a hedge, and he scrapes aside some bushes, and he hides it all, and he thinks, bah, ha, hum, the end. And then he goes back to his cave / office / home. The family wake up in the morning and find the violin missing. They come back to the town and everybody gathers around, wanting to hear this beautiful music, wanting more of this magic. And they tell the town what has happened, that someone has come in the middle of the night and stolen their blue violin. And the word goes round. And the people in the town think, we can't have this on our heads, that we are the place where these people came with beautiful music, with magic, the magic made by a blue violin. And that is now going to be our reputation. Well, it so happens that in the town there lived a maker of instruments, an old man, an old craftsman who made instruments. And he had been there the day before and heard the music. And it so happens that he had a violin, amongst other things, a guitar, a ukulele. I was in Bromyard at the Folk Festival. I've never heard so many ukuleles being played, and I've never seen so many Morris dancers, but that's another story for another time. And he turned up with a violin, an ordinary violin that he had crafted himself. And he went up to the family and he said, I don't know what happened, but on behalf of the people, I give you this humble offering. I don't know if it's going to be as well toned and as well seasoned as the one that you had, but please accept this humble gift. And they accepted it. And the young man took it and he started playing. And of course, the blue violin wasn't magical. It so happens that in an effort to get the child to play the violin, his father had simply painted it blue to make it more interesting. So he took the violin and he started playing. And the same magical sounds emerged, and the people of the town were treated to the same beautiful music. And all was well again. And everyone was happy. The child, his family, the people of the village, everyone, except that in the distance, within that house / cave / office, if you listen carefully, you could hear the sound of doors slamming and the anguished cries of an angry, bitter old man, whose name was not Mike Rust, I hasten to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Braden. And no, I like to think I'm not a sad, bitter old man. Okay.
Of course you aren't.
Right, so I have two screens in front of me. One is Nuala from Inniskillen, and the other is Sally. So Sally has got back to me, and it's lovely to be with you again, Sally. And we're coming to an end, and I am figuring you're not telling stories this one. Nuala, I've got a feeling I know you, and you're hiding there somewhere. Are you going to come up and tell a story? No, was it? Well, I don't think so. Right. So on Tuesday, we've got the Young Storytellers that in UK time, it's 5 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and it's the Young Storytellers that come through, and that is every Tuesday. On Friday, the 7th of October, we've got Maria Gillan, and she's doing a set for the World Storytelling Cafe, and I'm back here in a fortnight's time doing the same thing all over again. And if you don't turn up, I want some doctor's notes from you, or a teacher's notes and things like that. Okay, particularly you, Rona, because you've been out of my scope for a while, hiding in Italy. I nearly had to send someone to come and find you. Okay, so it's been lovely to be here again, and thanks to the World Storytelling Cafe for doing it. I see the techie boys are getting in charge of everything. Oh, here we go. What's Nuala saying? Here we go. I've got nothing ready this evening. I'd love to join you again in 2 weeks' time. Don't be late, Nuala, because I know where you live, mate. So okay.
Did you see what Despina wrote? You were talking about notes.
Yes, I go. Oh, well, no. That we're not doing that, Despina. Okay, right. You can put us on the naughty step. Me and Baba, you'll have to put us on the naughty step. Okay, yeah. You're a teacher.
Hey, Mike.
All right. And
thank you for being such a wonderful host this evening. We don't often say that
I
to
absolutely
you.
enjoy it. But before we finish, I just want to say this, babe. We're going to have to work on. We've got some mates down Bromyard Way. We're going to have to start talking and see if we can arrange for you to come back next year. You obviously don't get out enough if you think that's a lot of Morris men, because that is not a lot of Morris men. That is just a few Morris men. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. I mean, I loved it. It was great being there for the day, and yeah, it'd be nice to come and be there for the weekend.
You need to come on a Thursday and leave on a Monday and have the whole sort of experience.
I'm good for it. I'm good for it.
And we'll get you some cider. Okay.
Mike, tell Baden he needs to come to Staffordshire, because our Morris men dance holding antlers. So that's a sight to be seen.
Well, that's right.
Jesus.
Really, Abbott's Bromley. But that's gone this year. It was only just a couple of weeks ago. The village they're talking about, Baden, is they've got a real set and a practice set. So they went to date the practice set. And the date for the practice set was the 7th century. And that's the practice set. The real set that they only use for once a year was before then. It was that old, and they're kept in the church. It's called Abbott's Bromley.
How much rum am I gonna have to bring with me to survive this?
A couple of barrels. A couple of barrels, mate. If you drink rum, do you know what Calvados is?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we make our own Calvados round by here.
Jesus, wet. Sorry, what are those dates again?
We'll see what we can figure together. Okay. Anyways, I'll be here in a fortnight's time.
Great evening.
Back and we'll do it all again. Many thanks to Wally and the Storytelling Cafe people and everything else. And I'm going over there so we can get this coordinated, because it seems to be growing to an audience over in the Storytelling Cafe while we do this and everything else. And it's all, and so we're growing it slowly and better. The festival we're organising for next year, I was saying to Janet earlier, we have a meeting tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to organise the festival this end. And we're having a bundle of fun doing all that and everything else. So it's lovely to be here again, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you. I couldn't do this unless people like you turned up to tell stories, which I just thoroughly enjoy. So thank you for all coming.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And can you confirm that Baba C is definitely not going to be there next year?
Don't listen to Baden. You know, Baden, I've been nice to you. You're sitting in a dark room. Turn the light out. Anyhow, I have every plan to be there.
Right. So how far are you, Baba, from Florida?
Okay, so I'm mid-Atlantic. So
Yeah.
I'm about halfway up the East Coast. Florida is the extreme southern on the Atlantic coast. So
Right,
it's a long drive. I think it's like an 12-hour drive. I'm not sure.
Right.
But but we've been blessed. The hurricane skipped past us. Unfortunately, it hit Canada.
Drat.
Well, right. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to be in Florida in March next year, so perhaps we can arrange to meet
Well,
or something.
yes, because if push comes to shove, we'll do a Zoom. But yeah, we can make that work.
Fort Lauderdale is the place.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
military base. Used to be a military base.
Oh, did it? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But so I can't avoid it. Anyway, you don't want to talk about my personal business stuff. Okay.
Oh, always have
I'm
a good
going to
ear to
leave.
listen.
I'm going to leave you all. Thank you all for coming. I'll see you in a fortnight's time. Apart from you,
Thanks,
Janet,
Mike.
see you tomorrow morning.
Great
Bye.
night. Good to see you
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Great to see you
all.
Enjoyed your
Lorna.
stories, even you, Baden.
Beautiful.
Thanks,
Bye.
Waleed.
What you
Is
like?
To be
Is he-
continued.
Is he
You
still
know, when
here?
Baden become some more practice, he's actually going to be a good storyteller. Yeah, for those that may not know, Baden and I go back and forth. We love each other like brothers, like the one I never wanted. But anyhow,
You know, like Cain and Abel, and one of them got murdered.
yeah, right.
Oh,
Let's not forget.
Yeah.
All right, good folk and Baden.
I love you
Talk
both.
to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good
Thank you,
night,
Ronald.
good people.
Thank you, Waleed.
Thank you, Ollie.
Thanks, guys.
Until the next time, to be continued.
Yeah.
Okay. Night. Bye.
See out.
Yeah, we need to talk, bro.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's a good time for you?
Whenever.
You say that.
Whenever you call, I'm never going to be available. You just call.
And when you call, it'll go straight to voicemail. No, it'll say voicemail full.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
We'll get it together.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Stay blessed.
All right. Good knob and good night. Take care. Stay blessed. All that kind of good stuff.
Mm-hmm.